Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McLaughlin. I'm the COO at Reach, and it's my pleasure to host this call tonight with our amazing community. So I'm going to kind of lead us through it. I think um, we will give folks one more minute to join, and then we'll get started, which means you get this amazing music for another, let's say, 30, 45 seconds. Okay, we're back and we're going to get started. Again, for anyone that just joined, I'm Dave McLaughlin. I'm the COO here at Reach. It's my pleasure and privilege to be able to walk you through our quarterly call with our amazing community. You can see on the screen what the agenda is. We're going to hear from our founders to start out, a little bit about the vision and about what's happening at Reach. Then we're going to have a live case study with one of our users, one of the incredible builders that's building with Reach. And then we're going to walk through Reach Labs projects and our internal team updates so that you all have a sense of the details that are moving forward every day and what we're excited about. So let's start, if we can, by inviting Chris Swenner to join, and we can dive into a little bit of a conversation with Chris, our co-founder and CEO.
How's it going, Dave?
Chris, how are you?
Living the dream.
Awesome to see you. There's so much happening with Reach, and we're going to cover a lot on the call. But before we dive into all of that, maybe you can kind of take us back to the beginning, you and Jay founding the company. You know, something drove you to sort of launch into this. You had a clear vision. Maybe not everyone on the call knows that story. Can you tell us a little bit about what drove you?
Sure. So I think we have to go back a little bit before the actual founding of the company to kind of like understand where I came from. So back in 2013, I started investing in crypto, and I thought it was really cool. I was like, oh, this is neat. A self-sovereign, trustless currency. This could be something. But I wasn't really like hooked. I wasn't like what I am today. And 2015 came around, and I started hearing about the world computer, the trustless world computer, and that's when my head exploded. I felt that this is the future. This is what the internet was supposed to be. This is the thing that could potentially bring balance back in the world. As I started getting on my soapbox, and I started talking to everybody about it, and I started actually having my teams build things and figure out like what could this be used for. Because I had no idea. This is this was pure potential, but I was hooked. I was in it. Fast forward a few years, a bunch of failures, bunch of like figuring things out. 2017 rolled around, and I had a friend that came up and said, "Hey, I have an idea that's going to be able to make blockchain mainstream." Because I wanted blockchain in the hands of everybody, and I just felt like, okay, well, obviously, let's do this thing because this sounds like the right thing. And what the idea was scaling blockchain, because this was during like the CryptoKitties phase, where people were like, oh, look, all these expensive gas fees, and only if we knew how good we had it back then. But it was like, of course, once we fix scaling, we'll be able to fix blockchain. So started building that, and built out a prototype, and started actually like going and bringing it around and introducing it to developers at conferences. And I'd go to one conference and talk about how great this product is. But we're going to fix blockchain. We're going to make it scalable. And then I went to another conference and I saw the same developers, but like still, yeah, we're gonna make the blockchain mainstream. Just come and use the product. And I went to another conference and another conference and kept seeing the same developers over and over and over again. And I was like, wait a second, where is everybody? Like blockchain is so amazing. These conferences should be full of this new people over and over again. And I just kept feeling that wasn't the case. And then I thought, well, how can I build a business on this few of developers use? I could get every single developer in the space, and I couldn't keep the lights on. So like maybe scaling isn't today's problem. This was back in 2018, and I was like, okay, well, maybe if scaling is not today's problem, well, the obvious problem is staring in my face here. I see the same developers over and over again. Like they can't build the next internet. The internet right today has 25 million developers. And fast forward to today, blockchain has around 6,000 developers, according to the recent report that Andreessen did.
And that's monthly active developers. To be clear,
yeah, exactly. That's developers that are actually like spending their lives building blockchain. So 6,000 total, and that was like the big realization. I was like, okay. We need to get those 25 million developers into blockchain, and now that is the key to making blockchain mainstream. And that's when I had to think really hard, like how would we do this? It's like, okay, well, we could build developer tools, but I didn't feel like that was going to be the solution because I felt that was going to be too iterative. We're too far behind, and we need to actually make big advancements. And I felt like the templatized development type of aspect was too rigid at too early of a phase. So the only really big thing to do is ask the question of like, what does blockchain look like if it's 100 times or even 1,000 times better than what it is, to be able to bring all of those developers into the space. And that's when I started working with Jay. I was introduced to Jay through a mutual friend to actually work on a different project. And he came in and just knocked my socks off. Like how amazing, how brilliant, how forward thinking is as far as actually tech goes, and actually building and solving this problem of how to make just development easier. He had to warm him up around blockchain and to convince him that blockchain was everything that it's cracked up to be. He came around, but we partnered up. We decided this was the main thing that we needed to spend every single speck of our passion on. And we started Reach in 2019.
All right. I think people love hearing some of the personal stories, behind these things. And you just went back, I think, 9 years. So it's great. People have a sense of your passion and your commitment and how fired up you are about this. Sure. You talk about a vision of making it accessible for all these developers and multiplying the number of developers building on blockchain. How's it going? How's that vision going? What can you tell us from this last quarter?
So it's going great. Just to be honest with you, Dave, it was risky. It was a big risky bet that we decided to take, this big gnarly thing. And then it took us an entire year to actually get to a point where we had a product that we could release and people to use. So we released in September of 2020. And since then, we've now actually onboarded almost 7,000 developers into blockchain. This is not Discord users or Twitter users. This is literally developers building and compiling applications. And
but I'll ask you a question that Sure. maybe somebody listening is asking, which is, you told us before there are 6,000 monthly active developers in blockchain. Reach has onboarded 7,000. Help me understand those two numbers.
Yeah, they're all ours. No, so what it is that the 7,000 developers that we talk about, this kind of matches closer to, if you remember the Electric Capital report that came out at the beginning of the year, or they do a report every year, and they talk about, I forget exactly what, about 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 exactly developers that have come in and actually built something. This 7,000 number I talked to is closer to that number. But the 6,000 number you referenced earlier, monthly active developers, we have a number that we look at our monthly active developers, and that number sits between closer to 600 to 700 that we have. Which, if you look at that 6,000 number, 4,000 of them are building on Ethereum, about 900 of them are building on Solana, which puts us at a solid third place between of the big dogs, and we did it with in a quarter of the time with a fraction of the money. So I would say that we're doing pretty well. I'm probably pretty biased though, but right now, if we look at the number of transactions that are flowing through Reach applications, it's looking to about double at least every single month. So I'm pretty happy with everything.
I love it. It's great to get some numbers. I would love to hear, just before we switch over and talk to Jay, tell us about some of the personal stories, because I know, that's where a lot of the energy and gratification comes from. What are you seeing in terms of, people who are doing amazing things with Reach?
Yeah, it's one of the things I always say is like we are nothing without our community. We're nothing without our developers. We're just building a platform and allowing for the people to truly actually change the world and provide value to the world. We're talking to one of them, or I'm talking a little bit later. Austin. He's from Expect. He's building an amazing stablecoin platform. We're gonna dig into that a little bit, so I'm not gonna give much more away. We had a student that went through and graduated one of our boot camps recently, and he just got $100,000 grant from the Algorand Foundation, building a company called Fungible. You should check it out. It's NFT liquidity provider.
Wait. How long is a boot camp, Chris?
So the boot camp is between 4 and 6 weeks, depending on which one you go to. But I believe the one that he actually went through was actually the 6-week one. And
so
by the way,
this is a 6-week boot camp, and he got $100,000 grant to go start a company.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And the thing is, like, never knew what blockchain was before that.
Wow.
Literally came in, had a development background, learned how to build with Reach, and got a $100,000 grant to build an awesome company.
And that's the whole premise, right? Is that Web 2 developers can come into Web 3 through Reach very, very easily, very accessibly.
That's purely why we've actually been able to grow as fast as we have, is because we expanded the total addressable market to the 25 million developers. We're not fighting for those geniuses that are writing applications on Ethereum or wherever. We give the ability for the traditional developer the ability to actually use their creativity on providing value to the world and just doing it through blockchain.
Amazing. I'm going to ask Jay some more questions about that from a technical perspective. I want to ask you one more question, which is, I think Reach Labs is so exciting. Reach Labs obviously is where, we stand up teams to use the Reach language and build amazing dApps ourselves. I know we're going to hear from the leadership of those projects later in the call, but just give us a quick sense of, what you're excited about there.
Yeah. So what Reach Labs is, we're blockchain degens. We really understand what blockchain is, and we want to be able to, we come up with ideas all the time of how to actually add value in the world. And we also want to actually showcase what Reach can do and do it in the right way. So we have Reach Labs. There's 2 projects right now going in Reach Labs, and like I said, you'll hear for both of those a little bit. One of them is Humble. We recently released version 2.0 to the Algorand community with amazing response. I think we released earlier last week, and we're at $3.6 million of TVL. We have a farming a platform that allows for harvesting the yield every single block. People are loving it. I'm so proud of our team. Jared, who's leading the project, which I believe we'll hear from later, is amazing leader. Coming up with some great ideas, and hopefully maybe he'll talk about a little bit of the roadmap. I don't know, but coming up some really great stuff there. Alloy is the second one. I'm a gamer, Dave. I've been a gamer pretty much my entire life, and I got real angry about how people were applying blockchain to games, and I saw that there was actually a true value that you could actually add to gaming with blockchain. So what we wanted to do is build an entire gaming ecosystem around the idea of interoperable assets, so that if you spend tons of money on one game, like I have, don't tell my wife, but spent lots of money on one game, and then you get bored of that game. But what Alloy does is it allows you to actually take that asset and move it from game to game to game. So, in 50 years or 100 years, when I eventually retire or whatever, I can then just to inherit my kids can inherit my hoard that I accumulated over the years.
So it's all about your kids. This is about your kids. It's not about the fun you want as a gamer. It's about what you're going to leave to your kids.
I mean, obviously, Dave. That's
I know that Alloy first and foremost is about fun and amazing gameplay and how games can be better for gamers and also for game developers and content creators. And it's an amazing concept there. So we'll hear from Mike more about that. Chris, thanks for starting us off. Thanks for bringing us here in the first place. Awesome. And then we're going to jump over and we're going to hear some of Jay's point of view on all this.
Talk to you all soon.
Cheers. All right.
Howdy.
Jay, how are you? Tell us first. You're in the middle of the country somewhere. Where are you?
Yeah, so we went on a road trip from Boston to Utah, and we just arrived in Utah today. We got to see much of this wonderful country. We went through New York and Ohio and Wisconsin, ate some great Culvers there, and now we're in Logan, Utah. It was great. We went to the Grand Tetons. It was beautiful.
Oh, that's so fantastic. We talked a little bit there with Jay about with Chris about, sort of his sense of drive at kind of the founding of the company. Give us your point of view on, what you sort of connect to when you think back to starting the company and what your vision is all about.
Yeah. I think that something that has always motivated me is the idea of making like a transformative technology that doesn't apply to just one domain, but can actually be used for a wide number of things. So when I look back at history, I'm most inspired by things like the creation of electricity. Well, not the creation, but the discovery and mastery of electricity, or the discovery of really basic fundamental technologies like, double entry bookkeeping and, the steam engine. The thing that's so special about all of these is that they didn't just like make one small domain a little bit better, but they actually had applications throughout everything, such to the point that like our lives are totally transformed because of the innovations of accounting, and to the point that it's just totally invisible. If you were to talk to somebody on the street and they said, oh, I just started a company, you would not ask them, oh, are you going to use accounting? Of course they're going to use accounting. You wouldn't ask them, are you going to have a website? Of course they're going to have a website. Are you going to use a bank account? There are things that are just like woven into the basic fabric of our lives because they're so transformative for our way of life. And I think that blockchain has the potential of doing that, because what blockchain does is it basically makes it so that something that used to be provided purely through trust that was often misplaced can now be provided automatically in this decentralized way. And it's really hard to put your finger on exactly how that's going to be useful, especially in the domains where the trusted parties providing that service are doing a reasonably good job. So for me, I'm really motivated by this idea of that I like to call it making blockchain boring. I want to make blockchain one of those fundamental technologies that is so easy to use that, kids in high school can learn how to do it effectively, just like kids in high school can make interesting iOS apps or can learn the basic principles of, spreadsheet programming and accounting principles. That's like where my motivation comes from. And I think that comes from thinking about blockchain as a technology, but technologies that just exist by themselves that don't have a way to be communicated out in the world, like they're not really that important or meaningful because they're not making people's lives better. And I have grand ideas about the ways that I think that blockchain could make people's lives better. So, I'm really inspired by the philosophical case that, it can be a replacement for bad governments. That's really interesting and inspiring to me. I'm also really interested in just like, well, there are some transactions that are really expensive, and if we lowered the cost of those, then more would clear, and that would be more interesting. But I think that one of the real motivations for Reach is that people like me and people who are really interested in blockchain already, we don't have the answers for what it's going to be used for and what its killer app is going to be. People in blockchain have tried to come up with that for the last 10 years. And, they've produced the 1.2 trillion market cap that we have right now. But that sounds like a lot, but really it's not that much when you get down to the basics of how many people do you know on a daily basis that are using a blockchain program to make their lives better rather than just speculating on some future growth of a currency. Do you know people that are actually having their lives be better because of blockchain? And I think that the answer for most people is that they don't. And so I think that what the current blockchain world has produced is amazing and interesting technologically, but it hasn't cross the gap of providing real value to people. And our motivation at Reach is to get millions of developers in so that those millions of developers can produce tens of thousands of applications that have the possibility of being motivating for, my wife to use a blockchain application every day on her phone. So that's really
In
where
this
my
idea,
motivation comes from.
this idea that consumers will interact with blockchain applications all the time without knowing that they're blockchain applications. Because why should they care what the data structure is? They should care what benefits the application brings to them. And we don't yet know what those applications are going to look like. So the vision of Reach is really about empowering the people who have those things in their imagination so that they can bring them out of their imaginations. Is that a fair way to sum it up?
Exactly. Yeah, so much of blockchain today is like tech first. When you go use Uber, you don't care if Uber uses MongoDB or MySQL. You would never ask that question about a new application that you're going to use. You want to know how it is important for you. And right now, most blockchain applications, they lead with, we're on this chain, we do this particular algorithm, we do this particular interesting thing. And that, to me, is a sign of the problems that are present today in blockchain.
Tell us, Jay, I've heard you use this concept of the low floor and the high ceilings for how developers, how Reach kind of presents itself to developers. Can you share that concept for people?
Yeah, so one of the goals of Reach, as I've said, is to bring in more people and bring in those people so that they can create more interesting applications. So, as Chris mentioned, there's 25 million Web 2 developers. Well, those Web 2 developers have a certain skill set and they have a certain amount of experience and expertise and whatnot. And if we look at other domains, I think that the domain that is most similar to blockchain programming is writing like device drivers and embedded systems, which is a pretty big market in terms of regular computer programming. But there's a huge barrier to entry in doing that because you need to learn a lot of low-level programming techniques. You need to hold a lot of information in your head, and you need to optimize your program heavily because it's going to be deployed in an environment that has very little resources. So all of those problems mean that it's very difficult to get started in blockchain, and it's very difficult to make something big and important. And we can still build interesting things. I like to use the example of assembly. So people, I think, are familiar with the concept that there are different programming languages, and these programming languages ultimately run on your actual hardware, quote, using binary code and whatnot. Well, people a long time ago, 70 years ago, they would write programs directly in binary and in assembly. In fact, the very first computer that Intel sold, when you bought the computer, it was a big box, and there were just 8 little switches on the front of it, and you flip the switches on or off, and then you got to see 1 byte of memory at a time, and you would hit a button, and it would go to the next byte in memory, and you could change one by one all the bits to program your computer, and you would hit go, and it would run for a while, and then it would stop, and then you could manually flip through memory, reading the memory directly. And people literally bought that kind of computer and thought it was wonderful. Well, that's not that. I don't want to use that computer. I don't think anybody wants to use that computer. And if we only had computers like that were programmed that way, we would not have Restream, this software that we're using right now for running this video call. We wouldn't have Google Maps. We wouldn't have YouTube. We wouldn't have Chrome. I'm mentioning only Google products for some reason because that's the car that I'm in. But we wouldn't have those things. And so this concept of the low floor and the high ceiling is related to this. Like, we want to lower the barrier, lower the floor of entry so that anybody can come in quickly. And we want to raise the ceiling. We want to make it so that the limits of what people can produce are further away than what we currently think of. When you look at some of the most popular blockchain programs right now, I think it's undeniable that Uniswap is probably the most popular blockchain program. Uniswap was made by completely brilliant people doing extremely intricate low-level programming And but what it ultimately does is something that we can express in, I don't know, maybe like 200 or 300 lines of Reach code, where someone with very little experience can build this program, and it really does all the same things that Uniswap does. And that to me is what it means to have that low floor. And the high ceiling is that if you're working with a 5,000 line program and you want to make a change, well, that change is like smeared across the entire 5,000 lines. And it's really difficult to find all the components that need to change. And so that makes it so that your program is likely to be inflexible because you can't change things as much as you want to. And you have this limit of how far you can go in your design, because no matter how smart you are, there's going to be a limit for how much you can keep track of in your head. I think I'm pretty smart, and I can only handle, I don't know, like two pages full of code before I need to start taking notes. And so if the code shows it is bigger and more detailed, then it forces you to remember more details, which ultimately means that you can't build as complex things. So that's what I mean by the low floor and the high ceiling. We want to bring more people in and make it so that everybody who comes in can build something more complicated and more interesting and ultimately valuable for consumers than what they could with traditional tools.
I think it's super interesting because it's sort of two objectives that people don't always associate together. One, making it more accessible so that any Web 2 developer can come into Web 3 really easily. But two, making things more possible, and so that everyone that does come in can kind of dream bigger and be more ambitious. And that's really where Reach sits relative to other tools that developers might use, is that it does both of those things, which is so amazing. I want to ask you one more question before we move on and hear from one of our users, Austin, who's building XBacked. Which is just about Algorand and our partnership with Algorand, which has been so amazing. And yet I know that Reach is built to be blockchain agnostic, but we do work a lot closely with Algorand, and we love Algorand, and we think the technology is amazing. Help people understand, what that relationship is, why it's so important, why our focus has been there.
Yeah. So when we started Reach, as Chris talked about, we needed to make some hard decisions about, building this long-term vision, this long-term product. And a big part of that was we needed to find an ecosystem that we could demonstrate our value with, where that ecosystem wouldn't limit us either. And so that's why we chose Algorand. Algorand has really amazing tech. They have, if we were to pull up the fact sheet and we're like, oh, great transactions per second, great finality, those are things that are really nice. But more importantly for me, they have a design and engineering process that is really, bar none. No one else does it quite as good as they do. They're just amazing at executing amazing updates to their protocol that keep them, on the. They're constantly making progress toward the kinds of amazing consumer apps that we're talking about. And so the way that we work with them is we have regular meetings with their foundation and with their product teams, and with some of their other leadership and management teams to help us communicate what Reach developers need from Algorand, and for Algorand to communicate back to us what some of the things that they're thinking about implementing are, and they can use us as a sounding board for what new features will be important for Reach programmers. And so, for example, two of the big things that are coming this summer for Algorand are, one, they're increasing the transactions per second above what it already is. So that already has an amazing number, but they're going to basically increase it by 5 times, which is really remarkable.
Wow.
And then the other thing that they're doing is they're adding this new feature that they call box storage. Box storage essentially means that applications can grow the amount of data that they store in the blockchain over time. Now, there's a whole bunch of complicated details for how it will actually work, and I've been working with the Algorand company to make sure that the details of all of those functions are what developers need. But from Reach's perspective, what will it look like for Reach programmers? Basically, what it'll do is right now there's a function in Reach that's called map, and it takes 1 argument, and after box storage is available, it'll take 2 arguments. And that's really the only thing that's different. What that means though is that rather than having data only able to be indexed by user, it can be indexed by anything. So for example, right now we can store something like a person's eye color. So Jay's is blue, my wife's is brown, my daughter's hazel, but we couldn't store something like we couldn't store, for example, I don't know, like the date that two people met. So we couldn't store that Jay and my wife met this day, but Jay and Chris met that other day, because that is information that's keyed on two pieces of information that are two people, rather than only exactly one piece of information, which is always a person. And so Reach already supports this feature, but we only compile it for Ethereum chains. But after Algorand adds box storage, it'll just start working with Algorand. And then there are a few other things behind the scenes that it will enable too. Like it'll make it so that users will no longer need to, quote, opt in to Reach applications that use maps. It'll make it so that the storage for those maps will be more reliable. And it'll make it so that some of the programs that we generate will be more efficient as well. This to me is a really great sort of case study and what is important about Reach, where there can be a whole lot of work that happens at the network level, i.e. on Algorand, and a whole lot of work that happens at the compiler perspective from our end in Reach. But for a user, all that happens for them is they get, from one version to the next, their program becomes more efficient and more delightful for their users, and they have slightly more capability of doing more interesting creative things, and that some of the constraints and limitations that we put upon them get removed. One of the principles that I use when I think about Reach comes from a document that's called R4RS. I can elaborate on what that stands for later, but what it says is that programming languages should not be designed by piling feature on top of feature, but by removing the weaknesses and restrictions that make new features appear necessary. And I'm really inspired by that, and I like to look for opportunities to find things that Reach is currently limiting for users and remove those, because I feel like those limitations are what will ultimately prevent people from building the kinds of amazing consumer experiences that blockchain could produce.
I love it. And that's back to that idea of possibility. I think it's great to share more of the details with Algorand. I know a lot of people are going to be really excited about that. But you also mentioned other EVM compatible or Reach's EVM compatibility. And so I want to make sure that people have clarity on that Reach is also chain agnostic and usable with other chains.
Exactly, yeah. So we support all EVM-based chains. We support Conflux as well. And we have a few grants to build more connectors as well. In some ways, the programs that you write in Reach for Ethereum can have more features. For example, this map feature already exists for Ethereum. But of course, you'll be deploying on a chain that costs, $53 to do anything. So you probably don't want to deploy that for the same kinds of applications that you would deploy on Algorand.
Got it. Okay, Jay, thanks so much for all that detail. We really appreciate it. And you and Chris are going to come back at the end and hopefully field a few questions in the chat. If folks want to put questions in the chat, that's where we're going to answer them. Thank you, sir. And Chris, you're going to come up with Austin and just, let folks hear a little bit about Austin's experience actually building on Reach. So I'll drop away. Thanks, guys.
Good morning, Chris.
I'm back here. Okay. Hey, Austin. I don't know how I feel about Jay dropping so much alpha. That's usually my job.
I know.
But I guess I'll survive. Thanks so much for joining today.
Mate, I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Also, I can't tell if it's just me, but I think your webcam is frozen.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it looks. Hopefully it fixes. But you can hear me though.
Yeah,
least, right?
I can hear you at least. Yeah, that's fine.
Wonderful. So thanks so much for joining us today. Just jump right into the questions. So you are the core contributor for Expect. Tell us what Expect is and why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, definitely. So Expect is an over-collateralized stablecoin, so not an algorithmic stablecoin. And that basically means it's backed by crypto assets, right? The most prolific example of one of these types of stablecoins is DAI, built by MakerDAO. And I'm really passionate about it because, and it took me a while to like really grasp how amazing this is. People love Bitcoin because it's uncensorable, right? Like it gives you a lot of self-sovereignty. And a decentralized stablecoin gives you the same features of Bitcoin, except its price stays stable. And I think longer term, stablecoins pegged to inflation instead of the actual value of a US dollar or a foreign exchange currency value would be fantastic, because then not only is it stable over time, it retains its purchasing power. And I think that's a really valuable long-term vision, I guess, for what we can build. So yeah, that's part of it. I think it's just a big way to enable a lot of really, really powerful things to happen.
So you called out that it's not a algorithmic stablecoin, and
Yep.
you called out that it was a over collateralized stablecoin. We stablecoins are actually thrown out a lot, like, and describes a lot of different things. Why is this different than another Terra Ponzi scheme?
Definitely. So there's a few different classes of stablecoins. There is centralized, like USDC or Tether, and they're backed by real fiat dollars in a bank account or in bonds or cash equivalents, right? And then you have over collateralized, which has more dollar value backing the stablecoin than there are stablecoins in existence, right? So if there's 1 million stablecoins, you'll have at least $1.1 million backing that. And then you have algorithmic, and that's when you've got this usually two tokens. One is kind of like in UST's case, it was Luna, and that's called endogenous collateral. And when there's that relationship between the stablecoin and this other token, you can end up in this death spiral. With an over collateralized stablecoin, we have a portfolio of different collateral types backing, and they're all exogenous. So they're all unrelated to the stablecoin. So there's not that tight relationship. So it's just easier to defend the peg. And it also means, in our case specifically, you can always redeem one XUSD token for $1 of underlying collateral because we're over collateralized.
Gotcha. So this sounds complicated.
From a user experience perspective?
No, from actually building
Yeah.
something like this to actually make sure that it's everything, all the levers are moving in the right way. And so you chose to build it in Reach. You didn't choose that right away, but tell me about that experience, and tell me about the actual, like, the onboard experience that when you did finally decide to actually try Reach out.
Yeah, definitely. So a little bit on my background. To both you and Jay mentioned Web2 developers, right? I've worked in several SaaS companies over the last 5 years. So I'm one of those Web2 developers, and I also did product management and some DevOps and whatever. So when I came to start building on Algorand, I checked out TL, PyTeal, and Reach. Obviously, one of those choices was much more familiar for me, right? And so what the team and I ended up doing, and it's coming up on a year now. I've got the PR date seared into my brain. 23rd of August, we started a 2-week sprint where we just sort of went, is Reach a good fit for the project? Can we actually build what we want to build? And is it a good fit for the team, right? Like, are we actually productive, or is it awful to develop in? And there was no expectations at the end of this sprint to deliver anything. It was just like, let's learn it and let's try get a small proof of concept. So we got through those 2 weeks, and we're like, look, let's give it another 2 weeks. And at the end of that 4-week period, we had a very limited proof of concept. But the fact we went from 0 to something that looked like what we wanted to build in 4 weeks was huge. Like, that was like a massive, massive motivation. And this being almost a year ago now, Reach is much better than it was a year ago. The docs are better. The support is better. The community is larger, right? There's more people building applications in Reach. So for us, we were just absolute pests in the Reach Discord help channel. We were just like, how do we do the thing? And to your credit and the team's credit, everyone was very, very responsive. And they're like, this is how you do the thing. Or here's a link that talks about how to do that, right? We've answered that question before. So yeah, I think the onboarding experience now is way better. Back then, I'll be honest, it was a little bit rocky, but we figured it out, and you guys were very, very helpful and accommodative of everything. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we got better in a year's time. I will agree that yes, things are way different than they were a year ago. But fast forward to today, what has your team found really great about Reach? What is the thing that brings a smile to your face?
Yeah, two real world examples come to my mind. So one is all the complexity on the front end, especially like on Algorand, about preparing transactions and all that sort of thing, completely abstracted, which means as a front end developer, you can just go in and you can interact with the blockchain, like via the code Reach generate. The code Reach generates. And it's just really easy. Like it just makes a lot of sense as a front end dev. You don't have to worry about the details. You're just there to build a good user experience, right? So I think that's important. I think as well, yeah, I think that's a big example I like to point to. But I think another one is, and Jay spoke about this, is when you have a huge smart contract or a lot of code and you want to reason about that, reasoning about it in Reach compared to PyTeal, I think is much, much easier. And so late last year, we actually had to do this huge refactor of how our Vault contract worked, because we were imagining that each smart contract would be owned by a user. But we pivoted from that into a single smart contract, and all users have local storage telling us about their Vault, right? And so that refactor took a week, which is not a lot of time. And then we compiled, we had all the formal verification checks. The front end API didn't change. It was just like what was in the contract. And yeah, so just like reinforcing Jay's point, it was very easy to think about and visualize in our heads. Like, okay, this is what needs to change. So yeah, that's kind of, I think, the two really concrete examples. And then on top of that, we've gone through a couple of audits, and I think Reach saved us time and money there. Because when we were getting quoted, like, okay, if you want us to audit the teal Reach generates, that'll take 12 weeks, or we can just audit the Reach code, and that's going to be 8 weeks. And so that was a pretty easy decision for us.
Amazing. But to prove that you're not a paid shill, I wanted to actually take the opportunity to just ask you a question of like, which feature would you like to see Reach as we go forward? What is the top on your wish list?
Oh, the top? I don't know. I've got a few things written down actually.
Number one. You get one.
Number one.
And then right after this, I'm gonna make Jay build it. So make sure.
Okay. I've raised this one with Jay before. So low floor, high ceiling. I think that's a really, really, really great analogy, and I love that you're adopting that, because that's been our experience, right? We came in 4 weeks, had that proof of concept. But like as Web 2 developers moving into smart contracts and having to go through audits and all of that sort of thing, Reach was a help, but I think it could be even more helpful. So I think the compiler is smart enough to tell us like, hey, you should probably use a mul div here instead of what you're doing. Or you need to use a saturate, or you might, like a warning about, you might want to use saturation here instead, right? So I think the compiler could just warn you about a few little gotchas that auditors would find and be like, hey, this is a bug, right? So it would reduce the bugs found in audits, which I think would be super useful. So it's almost like a linter. But yeah, I think that would be my number one, because the language itself feels very complete to me. But I think that's just like a nice little feature. And then of course, like box storage, like Jay mentioned, that sort of
box
thing.
storage.
Yeah.
We want to add it as soon as possible. Don't worry.
Oh yeah.
But I like your analogy of like, because we would love it to get to a point where people don't need to do audits at all anymore, or actually the large majority of contracts. Because if you think about it, if we're scaling to the size of the internet, if every single project needs to be audited, that's never going to happen. So building in extra tools, extra safety is actually directly on our roadmap, and a Veracode type of suggestion where it's like, oh, this might not be 100% wrong, but you might want to check this because this might be a more optimized way to do it, is square in our sites. So you will get that feature. I promise you. Awesome.
Amazing. That's great. Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Like that mission of getting to a point where not all projects need to be audited. I think there'll still be a class of projects that should be. But I think that's a really huge goal because right now, like, I'm missing the days of working in a SaaS company where you could just like ship software. Because yeah, blockchains are immutable, and you do need to be more careful than in Web 2, where you can just like, oh, roll that release back. You don't get that chance here.
Yeah, there's zero budget for bugs, is what I like to say.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you. So I'm almost done, Dave. Don't boot me yet.
No, I want to ask Austin, what about people want to know more? Where can they find it? When are they going to be live? Like, give us the good stuff.
Oh yeah, give us the good stuff, the alpha. Yeah. So you can find us xpact.io, and our launch. So we were wanting to be live at the end of Q2, but because of Terra and because of a couple of other factors, like market sentiment being one, launching into a bear market isn't a bad thing, but launching into a very pessimistic and a very fearful market is a bad thing. So we're pushing our launch into Q3, and we'll likely wait to incorporate box storage and that sort of thing into the release as well. So yeah, Q3. So not too far away. We've completed 2 audits or 3 audits now for our Vault contracts. So we're feeling really, really confident in the quality there. So we're just waiting and iterating just a little bit more on the user experience and that sort of thing.
Fantastic. And awesome to hear you guys talk about safety. Safety is one of those things that, Reach is so strong on and doesn't always get talked about. So gentlemen, thank you so much. Austin, thanks for being here with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Austin.
Thank you.
Okay.
See ya.
We're gonna segue right into other people building with Reach, which is our Reach Labs projects. And Mike Wallace is going to join me here, who's our head of gaming. And we're going to talk a little bit about Alloy. So hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, Dave.
How's it going?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. All right, lots of work under the belt. And then at NFT NYC, you and the team unveiled Alloy. Give people a sense of what is Alloy.
Yeah, certainly. So Alloy is basically a next-gen gaming platform ecosystem for gamers, game developers, and content creators. So on the Alloy platform, gamers can actually own their assets, and these Alloy assets, or NFTs, unlock content, gameplay, and engagement experiences across all of the games on the Alloy platform. We haven't seen this before, where digital assets have true interoperability, not across different blockchain protocols, but rather across different game titles, which is huge. Another key part of Alloy are the game developers, who also benefit beyond the initial sale of their title. Game developers are rewarded for creating games with deeper player engagement and content. And the third pillar of our ecosystem are the game creators, right? The streamers, the influencers, who actually benefit from the patronage of their viewers.
I loved what Chris said at the top of the call about that the idea here came from his frustration with the way that other people were trying to kind of merge NFTs and gaming, and that this is really about, first and foremost, making games better, making them more fun, but then doing that in a way where all the key players benefit from that. So I think that's amazing. Tell us what's on the roadmap in Q3. What are you going to be kind of driving forward?
Yeah, so I'll talk about 4 things. So this past quarter, we completed a playable demo, which showcases how different rarities of NFTs could work in an individual game. We use this to basically showcase the functionality or the vision to game developers who are interested in bringing their games to the Alloy platform. And then this quarter, we're making a cross-game demo to showcase how those same NFTs can work in completely different genres of games. The first demo was a horror game, exploration horror game. The second game is an action space shoot 'em up game. So coming up this quarter, Q3, we'll be creating the APIs that allow game developers to integrate with their NFTs. This is essentially the way that the games will see what NFTs players have in their wallets. We also are working on the developer portal. Think of this as how game developers manage their storefront pages, right? What kind of game it is, how many levels there are, etc. And then finally, we're going to be plowing ahead with the marketplace development. These are how the Alloy assets will be viewed, bought, and sold.
Exciting. I know there's still a lot of work to do, so I'm not going to try to pin you down too much on a launch date. Like when can people, sign on? But give us a ballpark idea of when the public can expect this, and what can they do in the meantime? Where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, certainly. So we're looking at late Q4 to launch our V1 of the platform, late Q4, early Q1 of next year. And to check out, they can go to playalloy.com. They'll be able to see, our white paper. They'll be able to look through our initial game portfolio, and then also learn a lot more about Alloy than what I covered here.
All right, Mike, thanks so much. You and your team are doing amazing work. It was so exciting in New York last week, and to see the reaction of the crowd there. So bravo, congrats, and we'll catch up more soon.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna invite Jared Beauchamp up. Jared leads DeFi, so he's in charge of Humble. Jared, how are we doing?
Good, Dave. How are you?
Amazing. So Humble V2 launched a couple weeks ago. Just tell us what functionality exists there. What are people doing there today?
Yeah, we were really excited to be able to launch a couple weeks ago, and we launched with the swap and pool functions. So you can come and you can pool your assets. You can earn some fees on top of providing assets on the platform. And then if you want to swap assets, you can come and do that on Humble. And then a week after we launched that, we also launched Yield Farms. So we partnered with some of the best ASAs in the Algorand community to be able to offer rewards for people who came and brought liquidity and parked it on Humble. And we're really excited about how well that's doing.
Fantastic. And, give us a sense of when you say how well is it doing? Like, do you have some data you can share? Like, what's traction like? What's momentum like?
Yeah, it's been really fun. Right now we're looking at about $3 million in TVL and about $100,000 a day in swap volume. And those numbers are growing really quickly every day. So we're really excited to see where that goes. Those 15.
And that's in a couple of weeks, basically, right?
Yeah, just in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then our yield farms are really excited about, because those have about 1 million algos in rewards paired with a pretty close to equivalent amount of ASAs that are being rewarded along with that. So there's a huge amount of rewards to come and participate on the Humble platform. And so we want everybody just to come in and try it out.
I know that, there are some kind of design features that we think makes Humble really special. You want to talk about that for a minute? Yeah.
So when I got to the company here, I was kind of like given the vision of Humble. And, coming from a DeFi background, I understood how difficult it is sometimes to get up to speed on how these platforms work. And for a lot of people, for a beginner to try and come and interact on a platform, it's very difficult. So Humble wanted to approach this from a DeFi for everyone standpoint. And so we've looked for ways where we can shave off rough edges or make the experience better. And we benefit from being kind of second mover, so to speak, where the existing DeFi world, we've been able to see how much has exploded on Solana and Ethereum and other chains, and take some of those learnings and apply them into Humble. And really specifically, we saw the success of the Sushi MasterChef staking contract, and we saw how well that worked, where users were able to get rewards every block. They were able to harvest whenever they wanted to. And they were able to receive dual rewards, meaning you could get rewarded in 2 different assets. And so our developers rebuilt that same functionality on Algorand using Reach. And we were able to implement that and we've had a lot of really good feedback from our users. They really love being able to get rewarded after every 3.4 seconds or whatever the block time is right now. And yeah, exactly. And I think even your son got in on it too.
That's right. That's right. My 14-year-old son joined one of the yield farms over the weekend, and actually he had another. When we think about the design features, there's an experience design feature that Humble has committed to, which is, I believe Humble is the first DeFi product to offer live customer support. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. When we surveyed the marketplace, we didn't see anywhere that had live customer support.
Yeah, amazing. And how's that going? Like, what are people's response to that?
It's been amazing.
I can tell you what my son's response was. He's walking me through, and he said, "I hit a little snag here, but I just asked the question, and Michelle got right back to me. It was super helpful, and it was easy to figure out." So that's sort of the experience of the 14-year-old.
And that's exactly, I think, we put Michelle, we named her, and we put her picture on the homepage because we wanted people to understand that this wasn't just kind of like a robot that was answering them and was going to try and walk them through some sort of like frequently asked questions, but there's a real human behind that, because we understand that, again, these are difficult platforms to navigate through, and we want to make that as available as possible to everybody. And so we've got a really talented group of customer success agents, and they've dedicated themselves to making sure that they're Johnny on the spot helping people. I think the last numbers they gave us was the response time so far has been about 26 seconds.
Wow.
So really, really fast.
It's amazing, Jared. But it's such an expression of values, and sort of, again, going back to Jay and Chris, the values and the vision of what's being built here. This idea of DeFi for everyone, the idea of lowering the floor, inviting more people in. It's fantastic. Give us Q3. One thing you're excited about.
I'm excited for phase 2 of our yield farms. We got a $2 million algo grant from the foundation, which I think is a great vote of confidence from them. We've only given half of it away, and we're going to give away the second half in Q3. And then we've got some other product features that we're hoping to announce later. So it's going to be a good Q3.
And some juicy APRs.
That's right.
Yeah, fantastic, Jared. Thanks so much. So these are the examples of products that are being built with Reach. Let's go to our head of product and hear a little bit about Cassandra's experience. Cassandra, you're like me, you're new in the company. So just start out, how are you feeling?
Thanks, Dave. I just want to say hi to everybody. So far feeling really great. We'll say that I've never felt really passionate about a role, I would say, because the overall mission of unlocking blockchain really speaks to me. Just for the facets that Jay mentioned, blockchain can do so much for so many. So eliminating the barriers to allow more people, both technical and non-technical, to jump in, ideate, and create a better tomorrow really drives me forward every day here. And I'd say, in general, being new to Web3, Reach is really about their mission, because they afforded me this opportunity to be in this space. The fact that we even have a product org at a place like Reach really showcases how we're trying to move the space to be more accessible and user-friendly.
I love that. And so you own it. You own the execution of this product vision. Give us a little sense of what people should expect as we kind of dive into the new quarter.
Yeah, it's a pretty big vision. And first of which, I would say in that subsect, we're thinking through a cloud product. And we have a vision for cloud that would further drive our ability to really connect with you guys here in our community, as well as provide tools to build more efficiently with Reach. Our premise is that cloud will be this one convenient portal where users can really manage all their interactions with Reach. Users will be able to continue to learn, build and monitor their DApps, especially participate with other members of the community, and then really access Reach more uniformly for support. The cloud will, you'll see it being released in phases, the first of which will allow a lot of our users to have this sort of zero install experience so they can begin exploring Reach right away. And where we are right now with it is that we have started design architecture of Reach. And so in the next quarter, you will see sort of the beginning infrastructures of cloud being put into place, as well as hopefully its MVP, which is really focused, like I said, on bringing our baseline features to the cloud, as well as optimizing sort of that Docker experience for users.
And Cassandra, I know how passionate you are about connecting with users and really understanding, what their needs and their aspirations are and so forth. How is developer feedback, guiding what we do here?
Yep. Oh yeah. We're really trying to put the user first. I'm obsessed with it. I'm not a developer myself, so it's really important for us to understand the motivations and the problem sets that our users are facing, not just with Reach, but also just blockchain in general, so we can really understand the value we can provide. We've been holding user interviews with people, developers in our community, as well as founders, similar to Austin, to ensure that when we're building cloud, we're keeping their needs in mind, and the feature sets that are coming as a byproduct of those will really help that. So as we go through designing and building this cloud affairs, we'll continue to engage those test users for more feedback. And of course, for anybody listening to this, the community is very pivotal. Feel free to reach out. We're always open to sort of feedback and engaging our users to give us that feedback as we go.
Okay, best way for people to do that.
I'm getting used to the Twitter, but Twitter, Discord, you send me tweet, even an email. My email is just cassandra@reach.sh. Also, you'll see later, like a head of community. She's great. You could also reach out to her, but just we're here. No sort of divider between us. Just hit us up.
Hopefully at this point in the call, people get that sense, we have developers right on the call with us, and everybody understands how sincere this vision is. So Cassandra, thank you so much. And we're going to keep moving. I'm going to invite Brandon Rodriguez, who's our head of growth, to join us. And Brandon, it's been a busy quarter. East New York, permissionless, NFT NYC, et cetera. What's the vibe? What are you hearing as you're talking to people at these events about Reach?
Yeah, surprisingly optimistic, and I think that's what we're really excited about. I thought maybe going into these conferences there could be a cloud hanging over, and that's not the case. What we're finding is that the builders are building, and that's who we're here for. And so we were really seeing a lot of optimism and growth, particularly for real projects that have substantial kind of utility behind them and that are optimistic about the future long-term of blockchain and not just opportunistic. And so in terms of that macro vision and getting out on the street and feeling that energy that's still in the market, really exciting. In terms of what that means for builders is this: the problem is still there, right? There is still this overwhelming demand to build, that killer application, that next breakthrough thing to address the problems that Chris and Jay have talked about. But there is not the pool of talent necessary. We're still hearing the same stories about, too few developers, too hard to find. The developers that are excited to come in are taking a long time to kind of get up to speed. And so
expensive to hire.
I think many of us saw the funny tweet that went around this last quarter of a developer who demanded, some extravagant salary and was only willing to work 3 days a week, and not manage anybody and get full benefits and get lots of equity. And at the end of the day, if you're a startup, that's not palatable, right? If you have a little seed fund, you can't hire somebody like that. And if you're a big company,
yeah. And I know that's one of the things that you've been, getting kind of more and more outreach from companies about is the appetite to kind of learn Reach so that they can convert their existing Web2 developers into kind of blockchain ready, blockchain capable teams. How are you kind of responding to that? What are we bringing to them?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been really excited about developing this last quarter is that we're really refining kind of an onboarding process and product, actually. So in addition to the great programs that we've been running with JP and with Candace and the bounty hacks and the bounty programs and hackathons that are great for people who really just want to get on to blockchain in their own time, we are also introducing an onboarding product where we will actually come and onboard either a company or a group and allow for you to quickly spin up your business for your business needs. We're very specifically kind of talking to startups looking to grow dev teams that maybe already have a developer on hand that needs to learn blockchain development. Dev shops, there's a number of dev shops we've been working with in this capacity, and then large corporations that are building up their blockchain capability. And we're finding that there's just a lot of demand for people saying, hey, we need to learn how to build on blockchain. And we're here to do that. And that's really what Cassandra is helping us build, is so that as we, get Reach Everest, this alpha out the door, and we introduce these enterprise level tools, we'll have that capability to support at that level. Really, at the end of the day, bottom line, if you are looking to transition from Web 2 to Web 3 or enter into Web 3, we're here to facilitate that onboarding and make that easily and as painless as possible. I like to talk about it from a business perspective. We want to extend your runway because we know that resources are going to be constrained, particularly in this market when we talk about capital, and lower the risk, right? We talked about the safety that comes with building in Reach, and I think that's something that we really want people to know.
I mean, that's one of the big things, especially in big companies. All the stakeholders are concerned about having egg on their face if one of the things that they've read about in blockchain happens to them. And so being able to build with a language and a compiler that helps to protect them from smart contract vulnerabilities, all that kind of stuff is so important. Brandon, I want to thank you. This is awesome. Yeah. Super exciting. We're going to jump over to the developer experience and kind of community team. So I know that JP and Candace are going to join me. Hi, guys.
Let's get it.
Let's get it. JP, you get to start off because you have that enthusiasm. That's awesome. So, we talked a little bit about the guy who graduated from the boot camp and then got a 6-figure grant. That's one of your students, right?
Yeah, that was amazing. Simply the best.
Yeah, nothing feels as good as seeing people learn and have success, right?
Definitely. And he's not the only success story out of that first cohort. We had
give us another example or two.
Yeah, for sure. Eugene was hired as the founding engineer at Trudenti, and we had Peter, who was hired as a founding member of Grid Zero. Bobby Hamilton joined us. He's the founder of Algo Demonitor. And we also had Aaron Murphy, co-founder of AGG, Algo Gaming Guild. So a bunch of success stories out of that first cohort.
But wait, for people that don't know, just give us a little background. Folks are coming to the boot camp with what level of Web3 blockchain development experience?
Yeah, we recommend that they know Web2 development, no Web3 experience.
And these are the results they're having when they complete it in, Chris said earlier, 6 or 8 weeks, right?
Right. Like in Peter's case, he was hired specifically to move a Web2 company to Web3, and he was hired like as soon as he graduated.
And what does this cost those developers?
Yeah, so essentially, we actually pay them. We ask for a $250 staking fee, USDC. When the student graduates, they receive that back. If they build an independent project and then provide a demo of that, we give them up to $250 back in staking rewards.
That's amazing. So it nets out to cost them nothing, and people are going on to have the kind of opportunities that you talked about.
Right. I mean, tell me another boot camp that's going to pay you to learn and potentially get a great job or get a grant from a foundation to start a new career in Web3. I mean, it's simply, it's
about this clear mission and values and like why we're all here, why Reach is here, why Jay and Chris, started this and kind of put us on this path and how it's getting expressed in every part of the company. Tell us, what should we be excited about in the quarter ahead? What's coming up?
There's so much. I've got to tell this story really quickly. We flew 6 community members out to ETH NYC for the 36-hour hackathon. 4 of those, all female team, they formed their own team, did not know Reach. Started learning it Friday night. Asked Keegan, one of our engineers, some questions after they went through a tutorial. Had deployed their first application to testnet by Saturday night and submitted their project by Sunday morning. Took home 4 prizes from ETH NYC.
That's
all
fantastic.
Yeah, we had a second team at ETH NYC as well, and they took home prizes as well.
Wow. So it's just story after story of this kind of people having success with this, coming to it with with an open mind, but not necessarily blockchain experience.
100%. So this quarter, our community members, they can look forward to new tutorials. We have a new one on the board now. If they haven't seen it, check it out, Wisdom for Sale. We're going to have B2B training, as Brandon mentioned. We've been working closely with Growth and Marketing and his team to provide rapid training for companies so that their Web2 employees can learn together and be ported into Web3 with Reach in a matter of a week or 2 weeks. We've got a new Docs homepage. Check it out. Tell me what you think about it. I want to hear your feedback. And we're really excited to be working with our new educational partners, OpenTree and Blockbeam, who are helping Web2 developers move into Web3. They also help novices who don't know anything about development get into Web 2 in the first place and then move into Web 3. And they've got an entire funnel that's built to help them find those partners. It's really amazing. I'm excited to be working with them. And yeah, I mean, we're helping our developers. We're looking for people with big dreams who want to do great things, get into blockchain, and Reach is that enabler.
I love it. That's the headline. Candace, as the head of community, you're making that fun and supportive. And I know you designed these fun competitive hacks for the month of July. Tell us about that.
Right. So, I'm proving to everybody that Reach is fun and exciting and not just something that people would do for work. So for the month of July, we've created every Wednesday a one-day hack. And everyone is going to get paid for their time, $20, but they're going to be entered in to win $500 every week. And at the end of the month, there's going to be one lucky winner of $1,000 just for developing and working with Reach. How fun is that?
Amazing.
That's fantastic. I know we already had a winner last week, so that guy was stoked. Tell us.
If I could mention just a second, that winner actually is currently in our Ascent 2 bootcamp. So it was very exciting. A brand new person who's come to Ascent 2. And we had a lot of people who are also in our Decentralized Emoja 3, which is going to be starting on July 18th. So we're already working with them.
Which is a bounty hack. We talk about boot camps, we talk about these short hacks, but then we have these bounty hacks that are a little longer. Give us the kind of headline on how the bounty hacks are structured.
Right. So the bounty hacks are structured to 6 to 8 weeks of learning how to use Reach. And at the end, between week 4 and week 6, you start to work on your own project. Now, what's really great about our bounty hacks is that we pair every participant with a mentor. So there is someone there that is there to hold their hand, ask any questions they possibly have. And so
but
basically...
The mentors are just another expression of the community and the values of
Yes.
kind of the Reach ecosystem. Tell us about the growth in mentors in the last couple months.
Thank you for mentioning that. I want to tell you that our growth is threefold, okay, of the amount of mentors that are staying with us and that we've received from our last bounty and boot camp, which is also showing a upward mobility. You can come to us and we teach you something exciting through a boot camp or through a bounty, and then you want to stay and you want to do more and you can contribute. And that's what Web3 is all about. It's about community, and we help provide that for you.
And the way I think about the mentor growth is like, if you have somebody that wants to learn, or you are somebody that wants to learn, we have somebody that wants to help you. And like, what better way to think about it is than that. There's a chat on the screen here that's telling me that the new bounty hack with the African Blockchain Alliance has 300 people registered in it. So this is the kind of response that we're getting.
That's fantastic. And I actually have already reached out to them today, even though we're not starting for another week plus, because I want to get them excited about everything we're already doing.
It's so great. It's so great. Thank you both. You're doing an incredible job. I want to kind of, wrap up this part of the conversation, and I want to just kind of bring it back to Jay and Chris to field a couple of questions and share a couple of thoughts as we wrap up. But before we do, I'll just say for myself, in the last 15 years, I co-founded a couple of startups. I spent the last bunch of years at one of the fastest growing companies in the world, focused on optimizing their operations in that hyper growth, hyper scale kind of phase. And it's just so exciting and such a privilege to be here with you guys, helping to do that as we kind of move into this hyper growth, hyper scale phase. And so it's a privilege to be able to be part of the team. And it's a privilege to be able to kind of lead this conversation and help people understand everything that we're so excited about. So let me turn it back over to you, gentlemen, and let you sort of take us out.
Well, we're happy that you're here with us, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Right on.
Absolutely. This
Jay,
was a really fun update.
Jay, did you hear that we have 300 people signed up for the next bounty hack?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of amazing. It's like, you build something, you have an idea about how it's going to be used, but hearing people actually use it and what they're really getting out of it is really fantastic. Like, I'm surprised that JP didn't talk about the people who went to the ETH NYC hackathon and they learned Reach over a weekend and came home.
He did. Did he fall asleep?
Oh, maybe I did fall asleep. Maybe I was just so focused on waiting for him to say that I missed him actually saying it. It's like I love things like this.
What he didn't say was the amount of the prizes, which I know was like thousands of dollars that they won. So that part
Yeah, I
was
know.
awesome.
It's just so cool to have people using it and getting something out of it. So yeah, I'm excited about the new bounty hack.
I want to flag one question, guys, from the chat, which is Chaosmic Doge asked, how does Reach compare with other tools like Scripto? Also, when Unity SDK?
So I'll let actually Jay take this because this is more of a technical question, but go for it, Jay.
Yeah, so how do we compare to other tools and languages? I mean, there's kind of like 3 different techniques that people use to build a better blockchain development platform. There are some that are these like templatized development tools, which are basically like, you can kind of think of them as like a Shopify or a Wix, where they take a common pattern of a blockchain program and wrap that up into like a good interface or like a Web 2 enabled API. And the problem with these is that they don't allow you to do totally new things. They only allow you to do stuff that was made before. So Shopify is really great if you want to make an e-storefront, but it's not an appropriate tool if you want to make YouTube or TikTok or something like that. You can't do new things with it. The other technique that's pretty common is to make a programming language that basically has like tougher constraints than a language like Solidity or PyTeal or something like this. We believe that those are valuable because they make blockchain programs more safe, but they don't expand the market of who can be a blockchain developer. They in fact shrink it because they have more constraints and are more difficult to use. Now, finally, there's a few things that people think of as being different programming languages, but really they're different user interfaces for existing languages. So for example, people may be familiar with block-based programming languages like Scratch and Blockly. And what these do is they allow you to basically have like a drag and drop programming environment for writing programs, but you still need to totally understand what the program is. And so they don't really expand the audience of who can do it. Now, that's kind of my answer to your first question. I have no comments about Scripto in particular, but that's kind of the way that I think about the different things that are out there. And I like to be...
As far as the Unity thing, Jay.
Yeah, I was going to say that next.
Yeah, you talked too long, and I feel like I'm left out, so I'm going to say something. But wasn't Hamza actually working on that Unity SDK? Is that still actually in production or no?
Yeah, so Unity, you program Unity using C#, and Hamza, who is one of our DevRel people, he worked on a C# implementation of the RPC client, which allows you to run an RPC server that is basically like hosting your JavaScript Reach backend and allows you to expose it to a C# program. He wrote that for Unity, and he kind of made like a proof of concept. And then me, who knows nothing about C# and Unity, wrote it again in C#, but this time using modern C#, which I thought was nice. But it turns out that actually when you program in Unity, you have to use old weird C#. And so basically those are the 2 options that we have right now. We have one, which is the not feature complete RPC server, and the other one, which is feature complete, but only works for, but doesn't work for Unity. Something that's actually on our Alloy roadmap is building out a fully fleshed out C# interface for Unity, because as you can imagine, Alloy as a gaming platform needs to be integrated with the most popular game engines, so that will include Unity.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention that as well, is that with Alloy, the whole idea with Alloy is that the game developers that are building traditional games should not have to know anything about blockchain development at all. So we will be providing them not just a Unity connector to Reach, but actually a full-blown Unity SDK. So all they have to do is be able to call an API and be able to pull the information, and it'll do everything that they need to be able to have full access to all of the Alloy entities.
Exactly, and part of the infrastructure of building that will be these kinds of Reach, C# Unity SDKs.
Okay, well, that covers that. Thank you. we had a couple minutes left. Anything else that you want to, anything that sort of spoke to you during this call that you want to come back and touch on again or reinforce or add to?
Dave, great job on this one. Like I love this update. You nailed it. It felt special. It felt crisp. Great job with all that.
Well, if it reflects half the energy of what's going on in this company, then, that's a success.
Wonderful. One thing that I always like to say, like anybody watching this, is that yes, we are working super hard in blockchain, and there's a lot of people here that have been doing things for a long time in blockchain. But if you're watching this and you're not in blockchain yet, the truth is the future of blockchain is going to be created by the people that aren't in blockchain yet today. So don't be intimidated. Don't think that you're too late. You are actually early still. Because if Jay and I are as smart as what we thought we were, we would already make blockchain mainstream. We need you guys to actually come in and show us the way. Bring us your crazy ideas. We're going to give you the tools to make those ideas a reality. But without you, we're just playing away on our keyboard. So please, community is everything to us.
And we have all sorts of fun hacks and tutorials that help you kind of come in and jump in and get to know people and build something and get that feedback and win prizes sometimes.
It makes me feel like I should enter in a few prizes. I mean, got to get some of that, more of that DGen crypto money.
Yeah.
Jay, what about you?
Yeah, I want to re-echo what Chris said, that we are not just trying to target the Web 2 developer to bring new people in as some sort of weird strategic plan. We actually think that this is the thing that is going to be the most transformative for what blockchain can do. And the thing that I would add on top of that is that please let us know how we're failing and we're not doing a good enough job. Something that I like to talk about a lot is that failure is not a problem. It is a sign that you're actually testing yourself. And if you make some software and you just have it in a GitHub repository and nobody uses it, well, then you'll never find out that there are problems. And so when we find out that there are problems, that's actually a really rewarding sign, because it shows that people are using it. We think that there's lots of things that you can do great with it, and we think that we've done a good job in lots of ways, but we know that there are things that could be better about it. And we know that things that are better that could be about it that we don't. And so we are extremely grateful for any feedback that you can give us, positive or negative.
Yeah, one of the things that I always say is that our mission is not to build the best Reach development platform in the entire world. Reach is not our baby. Our mission is to actually make blockchain mainstream, and Reach is a tool to actually allow that to happen. So if we need to tear down Reach and rebuild it again to actually achieve our mission, we're okay with that. So let us have it. Let us know what should be different, and we're open to make things the best, because blockchain needs to be mainstream.
It's a powerful vision, guys. It's certainly why I'm here, and hopefully, a lot of the people watching this really connect and resonate with that. I know that they do. I want to also just thank two more people on the production side of this call. I want to thank Shanti for helping to coordinate all of it, and I want to thank Estuardo for essentially producing this. Great job. And I think that's it. We covered everything we wanted to, and anyone who wants to know more should reach out, get in touch, Discord, Twitter, etc. We're here, and we're here to help.
And as a sign off, just remember, everyone, that the future of blockchain is in reach.
Thanks, Jay. You stole my line. Bye, everybody.
We need a little music to go with that.
I know.